Hi, my name is Bob Wilkes, the inventor of Trim-a-Slab. I'm here to show you a few techniques and tips for installing Trim-a-Slab. But first, let's take a closer look at the material itself. Okay, now I'd like to show you a little bit about Trim-a-Slab. You can see the way it's constructed. It's in the shape of a T with two crosses underneath. The top part, which I call a crown, is rounded, and this is the only part you will see after installation. Now, your driveway started off much like this. It had 1x4 boards in between that have rotted away. Now, these boards were 3/4 of an inch wide, and so the corresponding gaps are about 3/4 inch wide. The Trim-a-Slab 3/4 inch size will measure a little over 1 inch on top, and that is so that when we press it in and install it, it cannot fall down into the gap. It's going to establish its depth by sitting between these rounded edges. And you won't need to backfill, it'll be self-supporting. And it'll also minimize the volume that you have along the top for dirt and debris. Now, there aren't a lot of decisions to be made when installing Trim-a-Slab, but if your driveway is divided down the middle like this one, you'll need to decide if the central or the crossing lines are going to be continuous. On this one, we're going to make the central one continuous, so we have a continuous visual line from the street all the way to the garage. You'll also want to install the longer pieces first, saving the smaller ones for the entryway and the sidewalk. Now, I'm going to show you a few of the techniques we used to do this job. I'd like to go over some general installation techniques for Trim-a-Slab. So, right now we have this joint, basically it's been cleared out down to about 1.5 inches of depth. It's not terribly clean, but it doesn't need to be any cleaner than that. We're going to start on one end, we're going to push it in just using hand pressure, and we're going to keep it straight ahead of ourselves and just work it in like this. And we'll do this all the way down the joint. Now you can walk back over this to make sure it goes down nice and flat. But that's generally all you'll have to do to install Trim-a-Slab. Sometimes you're going along, you're installing your Trim-a-Slab, everything's fine, and then you hit a spot where, well, it doesn't seem to be going in quite right. I mean, I can't get this crown to sit up against the edges of the slab. And what happened here is, this is just not deep enough. So I peel this back a foot or so, and I'm just going to have to chisel this and make it a little bit deeper. All right, here we're planning to run the central piece of Trim-a-Slab continuous from the road all the way up to the garage door. And we're going to use a butted joint for this area right here. Now you see we have a 3/4 inch piece on this side. We've needed to use a 1/2 inch piece on this slab. And when we run the central piece, it's going to go right down the middle. And it's going to look nice and tight. All right, here's one other type of joint you can use, and this was actually suggested to me by a customer. We're still going to run the central line continuous from top to bottom, but we've made the crossing line a continuous piece, and with the pruning shears, we've just cut out the top crown, so this part still remains continuous, but we've got a gap in here that's 3/4 of an inch wide, actually just wide enough to fit the crown of the crossing piece, and we cut out the base of the crossing piece, and this is going to go in here and make for a real tight, snug joint. This is the over-under joint. Okay, one other situation you might encounter is similar to right here. We've got concrete that's joining these two slabs. Now that can happen if there was a knot in the board and the knot had fallen out before they poured, and so there's concrete going across, or I'm not really sure what happened here, but there's concrete going across, and rather than chisel that out and fight that, what we do is we use pruning shears and we'll notch out our piece of Trim-a-Slab like this, and that way when we install it, it'll still go to the end, it'll go over the obstruction, and you're not going to see that when you're done. Now, if this occurs in the middle You know, of course, you'll notch it out in the middle like we did for the over-under joint. And this is a way that you don't have to fight obstructions. All right, here's another situation we've run into. There's a nail coming through right into the expansion joint. We're gonna have to get this out of the way. So what we're gonna use is a pry bar like this with a sharp metal edge. We're gonna lay it right up along the cement, and we're gonna try to shear this nail off. Now this pry bar is a lot harder steel than the nail, and if we don't shear it, we're gonna knock it down into the gap, and that'll get it out of our way. Oh, sheared it off. Looks like we're ready to go. Okay, here's the situation where the slab is running up to the foundation. If you recall from your planning your Trim-a-Slab project video, this was an area that we wanted to get. We've put Trim-a-Slab in, it looks really good. We run it, started on the end, we run it out to the edge, and we are just gonna trim to match. So there's really no measuring involved. We're just gonna cut it exactly where it needs to be cut. And for these cutting, I really like to use these pruning shears. Get yourself a new pair, nice and sharp, and it'll make the job go much easier. And that's all you have to do for this kind of a joint. Now, occasionally you may find a joint that's extremely tapered. Now, we have one here that goes from a little over 1/2 inch all the way up to 1 inch. So we're gonna use the 3/4 inch Trim-a-Slab, and to make it a little bit easier to install on the tight end, use pruning shears, and we'll shave off a little bit of the ribs on one side. And then that will go in just like this, a little bit tight on this end and a little bit loose on this end. But as you can see, the finished product is going to look clean. For you do-it-yourselfers, you'll find measuring templates and instructional videos on the website that will show you how to measure your driveway, plan the job, and also show you a few installation tips. But don't worry, Trim-a-Slab is incredibly easy to install. This is a project that requires no prior experience and will make you look like a pro. You can buy Trim-a-Slab at your local hardware store or order it at Trim-a-Slab.com, and we will ship it direct to your door. For those of you who would rather not do it yourself, there's a list of installers on our website.